If you're someone who has tons of responsibility at work, with family, you've been someone that everyone always relies on in all kinds of settings, and you're just feeling so overwhelmed, exhausted, burnt out, and just not feeling like yourself anymore, this is why. I'm Dr. Julia. I'm a health psychologist with a background in neuropsychology, and I work with so many smart, high-achieving women who traditionally have always been the go-getter. They've always handled so many responsibilities. They've always prided themselves on multitasking a million things. At work, they've always been a high performer. Maybe they have always hit their quotas in sales. They're crushing it in the real estate game. They're working in medical and health professionals, and their whole life they've been able to work hard, push hard, and really just be able to handle everything. And now their responsibilities have only increased over time. So not only are they in usually demanding roles, but now they also have other responsibilities. Maybe they have a family, a partner, a friend, family members that they're taking care of. The responsibilities keep piling and piling. And maybe before that was no big deal. They were able to just push through. But so many of them tell me now that they just don't seem to handle things in the same way before. They're trying to push through. They're trying to work harder, but actually it seems to be making things worse. So many of them tell me that I just feel overwhelmed by the smallest things that never used to overwhelm me. I look at this huge to-do list that I have, and instead of just knocking things out like I always have, I either just stare at it and do nothing, or I end up doom scrolling on my phone and then thinking about all the things I haven't done. A lot of them tell me they feel like they're just not doing anything right anymore. If maybe they're doing okay at work, then their personal life, their health, or their family life is suffering. If they feel like maybe they're giving that attention, then they're finding that they're not performing at work. They just feel like they have all these balls that are being juggled in the air. And before, they were able to keep them up there, but now they're falling, and they're falling harder each day. Do you resonate with that? You might be feeling the same way. Maybe you've always been able to just kind of push through. And for you and a lot of the people that I talk to, that's still a strategy that they're using. So they might go through the day completely on autopilot. They're getting through, although they're doing it with so much more exhaustion, with overwhelm, and they're finding that their day gets longer and longer. That pushing through that used to get them through, it's just not cutting it anymore. And especially for those who do feel like they're on autopilot, maybe they do get through the day, but then they just get home and they are absolutely spent. They have been just building things up over the entire day. So by the time their workday is done, they really have nothing left for anything else, including themselves. So many of them tell me that, I want to exercise, I want to eat healthy, but all I can do when I get home is basically lounge on the couch. Or others will say, I want to spend time with my family, I want to spend time with friends, but the thought of that just sounds so draining and exhausting. Or maybe they do end up doing it. I talk to a lot of moms, for example, who say that they want to spend time with their kids, and maybe they do, even though they're exhausted, but they're just so checked out. And then they just feel guilty and bad because they're just thinking about all the things they haven't done, or they're just too exhausted to be engaged. And so for those who do just kind of push through, their work just starts to suffer. But what they often see is they can kind of get through that on autopilot, but then the rest of their life just feels so difficult. And the longer that this goes on, as you can imagine, or maybe you've experienced yourself, we start to lose joy in our lives. We start to not feel like ourselves if we just become kind of stuck on this hamster wheel of work, pushing. Exhaustion started all over the next day. Of course, it's only natural. We're going to feel overwhelmed. We're not going to find joy. We're not going to feel internal peace, and we're probably not just going to be happy anymore, really. And so this usually becomes the point where so many women will start to ask themselves, why am I not functioning in the same way I used to? Some of them might really actually start to even question, I think something might actually be wrong with me. Do I have early onset dementia? Do I have, ADHD all of a sudden as an adult, even though I never had it as a child, or even, earlier in my adulthood? A lot of them really start to question themselves. Maybe I'm just not a high achiever anymore. Maybe I'm not a high performer. Maybe I'm just lazy and unmotivated. And they really start to beat themselves up. And one of the first things I always tell them when I'm talking with them, and I want to say the same to you if you're feeling the same way, is this has nothing to do with your discipline, your motivation. Usually doesn't mean that you have dementia or anything else going on. There's something deeper going on. And until we address that, unfortunately, these symptoms continue, and a lot of these things actually get worse. And that is a nervous system that has been just stuck in a state of overdrive and overactivated for way too long. So maybe when you were younger, pushing through, staying up all night studying, taking that one last call at all hours of the night, maybe you still had the energy to go do things, you still felt okay. But what has happened internally is a buildup of stress has built up. built up, and cause the nervous system to really start to activate in situations where it's really not supposed to be activating. And so what happens is the more overloaded it gets, the more that it impacts every single part of your body and mind. When the nervous system's in this state, your body actually does not function in the same way. It drains your energy. It causes digestive issues for a lot of people, tension, which can lead to pain and headaches, immune system functioning, hormonal balance. All of these things start to change. And so many people start to experience differences in how they feel physically. And of course, that's going to make handling all these responsibilities so much harder. Not only that, but when the nervous system is in this overactivated state, the mind simply does not work in the same way. So think about it this way: the more activated the nervous system, the less active our brain. And as you've probably experienced and can imagine, when we're trying to focus, we're trying to problem solve, we're trying to handle the million and one things being thrown at us, we need our brain to be functioning. And so that only causes more stress, more overwhelm, and even less functioning. So notoriously, maybe the things that have worked for you, trying harder, staying up later, going, at a certain point, your nervous system has said, enough, I am not going to let you continue in this way. But the mistake that a lot of high-achieving women make is they do continue in those same patterns without really addressing the root cause. One way you can think about this is, at this point, let's say your bathtub, it has a clog in it and the water is spilling over. We can try to, wipe away the water. We can try to put in all this effort to getting the water out. But if we're not addressing the clog that's happened, or in this case, the nervous system that's basically just stuck in this overactivated state, you can keep trying. You can keep pushing through. You can keep, just trying to go, working longer hours, putting more and more effort in, but it's not going to resolve the issue because at this point, the nervous system is at the root of everything's going on. So maybe before those strategies helped, maybe they worked for you even, but it's not going to be something that works at this point once the nervous system has basically said, I've had enough. But what they notice is even on days when they're not working and they don't have as many responsibilities, they still feel exhausted, overwhelmed, unfocused. A lot of them tell me that I can't wait until the weekend. I can finally relax. I can catch up on things, maybe spend time with family and friends. But when the weekend comes, they still feel the exact same way, even though they're not at work. It's the same reason that the nervous system, it's just still in this on state. So that is why, waiting for the weekend or waiting for that day off, it doesn't help. Another thing I've seen a lot of women do in this case is they might say, it has to be just that I'm in a stressful job. Sometimes, of course, there is a stressful job and it can be toxic, but unfortunately what a lot of them see is they end up changing jobs, but the same exact issues follow them. And that's because this is really an internal thing going on with the nervous system. And even though there's external stressful factors, once the nervous system has gotten into this state, you can change jobs a million and one ways, but these issues continue. You might say, well, this is just a phase of life that I'm in, once I'm done with school, or once, the kids are in summer break, or once this project's over, then I'll feel better. Same exact things happened. The nervous system doesn't know that those things are over. It is still stuck in this state. So you might actually over time maybe even have less on your plate, but the reason you feel the same is because your nervous system doesn't know that. One more scenario that often happens is people just wait for that vacation. Okay, if only I can just get to vacation, if only I could just relax, I'll be able to really feel better and recover. But what so many people find is that on vacation, they're truly not able to rest, relax. Their mind is just spinning with everything that's going on in their lives. And so all the time that they wait to finally rest and relax, it still doesn't do it. So I know I gave you a lot of examples there, but all of that to say is if you've been wondering, why can't I just seem to rest or relax or feel better even when life calms down a little bit, even when I take a day off, even when I vacation? That is the reason, because your nervous system doesn't know that. And once it's in that activated state and constantly that on button has gotten stuck, it doesn't just turn off magically by itself, even if our external environment changes. So you might be thinking, okay, well, what is the solution then? If what I've been doing all these years maybe isn't helping me anymore, maybe waiting for that vacation or changing jobs isn't helping me. One thing I'll tell you that you probably have heard from maybe doctors or other people, it's not necessarily about doing less. It's about slowing down internally. So you don't have to necessarily take things off your plate. You can still be that high performer, that person who manages and juggles so many things. But what we do need to do is have an internal slowdown in the nervous system, retrain it, regulate it, and reset it so you can actually start to operate again in that calm, clear state. So I do want to encourage you, this is very possible. I've seen this in thousands of women, no matter how long that they've been in this state. Once we can really holistically reset the nervous system, there's no reason you can't get back to your calm, your clear, your peaceful, high achieving self. If you want to understand more about why this happens in the first place and what to do about it, as well as some further mindsets that can keep people stuck, I have a masterclass down below. Check it out. It's only 20 minutes.